What is up, chat? How we doing? Ready for the weekend? I know it's been a while, and got a headache right before I went live. I was like, "Oh Lord, should I even do it?" But I needs a strong word. I want to read the beginning of the DMG. I know it's the basics. In fact, the title of the first chapter is the basics. But sometimes, sometimes you need to get back to basics. Not that my group is complaining or anything. Sometimes I have anxiety issues about that. I have anxiety issues, period. But not to have them centered around like imposter syndrome, I think is what it's called, right? Like, should I be the dungeon master kind of situation? But I skipped a lot of this stuff because a lot of it I was like, it's the basics, right? I've been DMing for a while, and I'm thinking though that there might be a nugget in here that I may or may not know or enjoy. I'm also thinking that, I meet people all the time who haven't tried DMing yet, who might not know. Hey Nathan, great to see you. Who might be interested in hearing this, and there are some people that come here, like Nathan's awesome, Dr. Man's awesome. Dr. Man's probably working tonight. That's probably why he won't. Just to try to get more of me in the frame and less of my ceiling. Come on, camera, behave. So yeah, so we're going to read the beginning, the basics of the DMG, the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide. I know a lot of people have decided they're not getting this version, and I wasn't going to. I certainly wasn't going to spend my own money on it, but I got it as a Christmas gift. So actually, I think I got this as the Player's Handbook came out first, right? Yeah. So I got this as a Christmas gift. I got the Player's Handbook as a birthday gift because my group that I play with wanted to try the 24 version. And there are some cool things in there, especially all weapons having abilities. If you've played Baldur's Gate 3, you kind of can see where, like, if you equip different weapons, you have different abilities attached to those weapons. It's similar to that. It's not one-to-one. That's also in the Player's Handbook, not in this. But there are some interesting ways it goes about it. Creating characters, it's easier to follow the walkthrough in the new handbook of creating a character than it was in 2014 rules. But this is the Dungeon Master's Guide. This is the Player's Handbook. So let's see if maybe I shouldn't have skipped the beginning, or if there's anything in here useful for other people that may be watching or listening. Nathan, is the sound of my voice compared to the music level, is that good? Do you feel? This is once again music that I bought in the in a game making bundle. It's probably a charity made by Joel Studler. Their link is in my about section. Link to go to Patreon. So if you enjoy the music and you want to use it in your own projects, I suggest you go. All good, awesome. You go support them. If you like it, I dig it. If I ever want to buy some music, I will definitely be going to them. All right, so let's get back to basics. Dungeons & Dragons is a game in which you and your friends take on roles and tell a shared story. While the Player's Handbook teaches you how to play the game and how to create characters who are the heroes of the story, Dungeon Master's Guide is written for the player who presides over the game and makes sure everyone is having fun. This player is the Dungeon Master, or DM. Being a Dungeon Master is a fun, empowering, and rewarding experience, and this chapter walks you through the basics. If I get to stream Monday, by the way, I'll probably be talking about I think I want to read Thirsty Sword Lesbians. That's what's next on my list. Let me know, though, if you want me to read that one, or if there's another game that maybe is on your radar that I can see if I already have. I usually I go for like Powered by the Apocalypse games, but I'm flexible. if you guys put out a game there and I check it out and I want to check it out, we can look into it together. What does a DM do? The DM gets to play many fun roles. Actor, the DM plays the monsters, choosing their actions and rolling dice for their attacks. The DM also plays all the people the characters meet. Director, like the director of a movie, the DM decides and describes what the player's characters encounter in the course of an adventure. DM is also responsible for the pace of a play session. I'm sorry, the pace. I was about to say, no, they're not. For the pace of a play session and for creating situations and facilitate fun. So I feel like they said a few big ideas there in one little sentence or two. They might expand on these later, but what I do want to expand on that is the pace can be tricky. Nathan was in a one-shot Monsters of the Week with me recently, and we found out pretty far into our second session, which was going to be our last session. It was supposed to be a one-shot. I got split up into two. That some people had some hard times to be out that they didn't let me know beforehand, and so we had to quicken the pace for that. I also can struggle with pace, especially of one-shots. I don't know if I've ever run a one-shot that was just a one-shot. It turned into a 2 or 3 shot. So that's tricky. But yeah, the DM is kind of in control of that. But I mean, if you struggle with this, don't get too mad at yourself, because first of all, it's one of the hardest things to control in my opinion. But also, the players, they can get on rants, sometimes not even about the story. Sometimes they can get distracted and like get on a real life rant. Something can pop up on their phone, or they can remember something they want to talk to their friends about and ask their friends about. Especially, my group. My group has they're not neurotypical. Let's just put it that way. And so you have to be patient with your friends, especially in those situations. I was watching an actual play last night, and I was very uncomfortable because the DM was being a little bit rude to the players, and it didn't feel like they had that kind of relationship. So be careful about that too. My only one shot as GM went to 100% failure rate. Only way is up. I mean, it could go to 3 or 4 next time, right? But I think that was also a situation where, because I believe that's the one that I played in, and again, like we can get off topic in that group and just do rants. But yeah, so yes, you're responsible for the pacing. You're not in control of the pacing. You're responsible for the pacing, but don't get too frustrated or upset if that doesn't work out. I knew a DM once that I followed their channel, and they talked about a home game they were running, that they made 1-page notes about what beats they wanted to happen in the story, and they were still on the second or third beat at the end of 6 sessions. Like it was halfway through their idea of what they had set, the amount of time they had set for the campaign. So yeah, while you are responsible, don't get hung up on that. The main thing always is that meme that I tried to find, because I wanted to have it on this channel as like a redeem. From the Mighty Ducks where she says, "It's a game, Gordon. Remember, this is a game. It's supposed to be fun. If everybody's having fun, you've won. You've won D&D. If everybody's having fun, doesn't matter how much of the story you get through in one session or several sessions." I'm also listening to a very famous campaign. I remember the name of them. We almost rated them last time, I think. Let me just real quick, because it's on my phone. Legends of Evantris. Once Upon a Witchlight. And it took them over 20 episodes just to get out of the carnival. And they were joking about that because they were like, at the beginning of the campaign, they're like, "Oh, it might be in the carnival for a few sessions." And it took them so many. And now they're joking about they just had 6 sessions in one day, basically, at the Froggy Court or whatever. That lasted in game time one day. So don't get too hung up on pacing, as long as everybody's having fun. But yeah, I guess it's correct where he says responsible for the pace of play in session. For creating situations that facilitate the fun. Improviser is also a role that the DM has. A big part of being the DM is deciding how to apply the rules as you go and imagining the consequences of the character's actions in a way that will make the game fun for everyone. And to paraphrase that, because I don't love the way that they laid that out when it talks about how to apply the rules. What are you talking about? When are we going to apply, when we're not going to apply? For one thing, there's homebrew, but I think the main thing they're trying to say there is when to call for a roll or not. And that is part of pacing. There's two parts to that. One, if the story cannot move forward without them finding a clue, either don't ask for a roll, or the roll is not going to determine whether they find the clue, just like how long it takes them, how hard it was. You don't ever want to stick progress in the plot behind a roll, because there is a potential for them to fail that roll. So what I've done in the past several times when I realize that after calling for the roll, I'm just like, yeah, you feel pretty bad if they failed the roll. You feel pretty bad because it took you like a lot longer than you feel like it should have for you to find this thing. You're kind of embarrassed about it. But don't ever, oh, you failed the roll, I guess you go home. I guess you're stuck in the dungeon forever. That's not fun. It could be that they have to find a different solution, but don't ever. If the story has to move forward, it's all about the story. It's all about creating a fun story. So don't let failure of a role stop the story altogether. And that's how I read that. How to apply the rules. Even though I don't feel like that should be under improvisation. Just improviser decide how to apply the rules. Improvising is more about the role playing, I think, unless I'm not reading that correctly or understanding that correctly. Referee. When it's not clear what ought to happen next, the DM decides how to apply the rules. And when it says referee, don't be concerned that means that you're going to be put in positions of like unwanted conflict or something. I am, as a person, one of those kind of people that I like to avoid conflict. I don't like conflict and confrontation. I don't like confrontation. That's not what this means. And the main thing here I wish they had put there is that you're not actually the referee. You call for the dice to be the referee. Have them roll off. If two people are having a problem and you're not sure like how to proceed or where you want the story to go, because you don't want to play favorites. You don't want to play favorites for your players, even if your spouse is in the game. Because that's going to be less and less fun the longer you play the favorite. And it's going to get old real fast. Let the dice be the referee. The only time you have to be like a real referee rules lawyer is when it's not necessarily multiple players, but one player coming to you. They have an idea they think is cool, but it's either maybe they read the rules wrong, or maybe they want to break the rules in this one instance because they think it's cool or fun or whatever for them. You have to be really careful with that. The rules are suggestions, and we can let them break the rules all we want. This new system gives you level 1 feats. Every character gets a level 1 feat. It suggests what feat you should get for taking certain backgrounds. But you can also just let them take any of the level 1 feats. And it's not any feat. It's not any of the old feats. They have some of them that they now characterize level 1 feats. Some of them they characterize higher. And again, that's in the player's handbook, not the Dungeon Master Guide. But I have a friend that likes to play in our games, and they like to put fun combos together that are really like OP, especially when it comes to like fighting and stuff. The reason why you have to get careful with that is that if the fights become too easy, you're not challenging them, and they're there because you have different kinds of players. You have some players that like to be there more for the combat. You have some players like to be there more for the role play. And so I try to do a little bit of all the above. This friend is a fellow player in one of my games. I don't DM for them anymore. But you just have to remember, they don't always. If they always get what they want, it'll actually be less fun for them. It's a lot like if your character always succeeds, which I never understood cheating in D&D, and like dice fudging to have your player always succeed. To me, that's not an interesting story. There's a lot more interesting things that happen in failure, and it can be a lot more fun, definitely a lot more funny when failure comes into play. So, if you can, I would say let dice be the referee, unless it's one player coming to you wanting to just have more stuff for their character to be even more OP, because then it's going to be more difficult for you to balance the encounters for them. And like I said, if there's no failure, then what's the fun in succeeding if you succeed all the time? Like, to me, that would get real boring real fast. Storyteller. The DM crafts adventures, setting situations in front of the characters that entice them to explore and interact the game world. Okay. Teacher. It often the DM's job to teach new players how to play the game, but don't get too hung up on that one, especially if they're also new players and you are new. You can all learn to play together at the same time. World builder. The DM creates the world where the game adventure takes place. Even if you're using a published setting, you get to make it yours. And that might even happen by accident. You might be running in a setting and something might come up in the game. In fact, things will definitely come up in the game that's not covered by the setting. To either you and your co-players, which again doesn't have to be all you and your co-players can decide, okay, well, this is what explains that. Like, not all settings are going to tell you where wizards learn their magic, whether it was by being an apprentice to another wizard, whether there's a wizarding school. So, like you and your players can agree, okay, in this setting, this is how we're handling that. That makes sense? Also, not in all settings are going to be the same as original D&D. It's changed a lot. Original D&D has changed a lot. Goblins used to always be bad. They were never player characters, and now they're player characters. In the player's handbook, you play as orcs, not half orcs. I think is what one of my players said. I didn't double check them on that, but they said there's less about being half things, more like full things. And he's one of my players, is a Goliath, where before a expansion book in 5e, you weren't able to play Goliaths, right? So again, these things are always changing. So as far as world building, I suggest that to be more of a cohesion, team-based exercise. And what's really great is if you can get some players to tell you a lot about their character and what's like in their hometown. Because I can give you a lot of ideas about the world just by knowing their hometown. We're currently playing in Eberron. I took their characters and actually transported them from where they were and put them in Eberron as the result of a wish spell by the person who wanted to take over. Because one of my characters took the noble, and I was like, what kind of noble are you? Like, are you, do you just own land in the area? Are you like the princess and the king, queen, like run the place or whatever? And she chose princess, and then she session 1, she's like, I killed my parents, so I can be like the leader. And she wants to go to war with like the neighboring town of Hershey or whatever. And one of the other players was trying to get to Hershey to. She said her town was Candyland, and the other one was Hershey. Which this is all fun. But one of the other players wanted to get there to like save their family, because the family had been like gone missing and ended up in Hershey. And while that can be a fun thing for some people to play and to run, I didn't want her at level 1 leading an army in that way. So I also have been playing around with the idea. Like, I wanted to have a Jafar villain enter the fold. And I was like, well, what if he does what he does in Aladdin, where he wishes to take over a kingdom? And banishes, you know how you banish the land into a far off land. Now, Landon was still able to get back right away, but they're going to have to take their time and learn about Eberron and find another, like, teleportation way of getting back. But since we're in Eberron now, for one thing, Eberron's very different. Eberron, in the classic lore of D&D, the goblins hold the place like elves have in the Sword Coast, where they used to kind of rule it all. They're one snobby kind of situation. And the drow there are not from the Underdark or evil. They're more a spiritual. They're closer to like in Mulan, where she talks to her ancestors. They're like they have that vibe to them. The drow anyway, and then the dragons. They have their own island and they're like isolationists. And they don't let everybody come near them, and they're just all trying to work out this prophecy. It's pretty cool. We'll definitely probably talk about Eberron more in its own couple videos, multiple videos. There's a free Wikipedia online that we can go through and talk about, which would also be helpful for me for like world building or campaign planning. So we'll talk about Eberron more in the future. But I do want to at least get through the first couple pages of the new Dungeon Master's Guide. They bought this for me for Christmas. I really should probably read it. And like I said, I read some stuff. I read stuff that I was hoping was going to be helpful, and it really wasn't at the time, but maybe I wasn't like ready to read it, ready to let it sink in. I was also hoping it would be more helpful in my author career and like story structure. That's what I heard. This is supposed to be better at like building adventures and stuff, and maybe it will be if I read it from the beginning. I kind of tried to jump ahead to like building adventures and stuff, and it didn't tell me like anything I didn't know. Or at least not that I'm remembering right now. But anyway, we covered what does a DM do on the basics there. The next section says DM tips. The most important part of being a good DM is facilitating the fun of everyone at the table. Keep these tips in mind to help things go smoothly. Real quick on that, you are also at the table, so you also should be having fun. Embrace the shared story. D&D is about telling a story as a group. Let other players contribute through the words and deeds of their characters. Encourage players to engage by asking them what their characters are doing. Excuse me. It's not a competition. DM isn't competing against other players. It's your job to provide fun challenges and keep the story moving. I think that's really good, especially for new DMs. You will hear the term every once in a while if you watch a lot of actual plays. I watch a lot of actual plays. I listen to some too. You'll hear the term about a what do they call it? A confrontational DM or something like that. Adversarial. I think it's adversarial DM. That you have to be really pro. You have to have a really good relationship with your players to try and go that route, and you have to also know that's what your players want. My players kind of play into that. That's not who I am, so it's like a little bit out of my comfort zone. But I love them. They're my friends, my family, my found family, and I'm gonna do that for them. But yeah, it depends on the table. I think that for beginner DMs, especially while you're just learning, and maybe especially if you and your friends are learning at the same time, to remember this, it's not a competition. Which is why I was talking about before with world building about it being more of a group exercise. Be fair and flexible. Treat your players in a fair, impartial manner. The rules help you do this, but when you need to act as a referee, try to make decisions and ensure everyone is having fun. That goes back to me, what I said about not playing favorites. Communicate with your players. Open communication is essential to a successful D&D game. Many problems can be solved or even prevented with honest conversation. Ask questions and solicit feedback after or between sessions. I'm gonna also say like during sessions. If if something's happening during the game and your players are like, I'm not liking this part, can we tweak this? If you can, like try to do that. First and foremost in the communication, have a session 0 where you talk about people's triggers, things that they want to either fade to black on or not have in the game at all. it is essential. Lines and veils are essential. But the whole game is a conversation. I love that a lot of the Powered by the Apocalypse system that's normally on like the first page of all those systems. This game is a conversation. The whole point of the game is communicating. You're communicating with each other to make a story. And I do like the idea of getting feedback between sessions, or after sessions. It's not always easy to do. I always ask, did you have fun? Sometimes they'll give me feedback, depending on how they're feeling. Most of the time, they're just like, yeah, it was fun. And that can be a little frustrating. But also, you don't want to push too hard, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And you're going to have imposter syndrome sometimes. People who've DM'd forever still have it. And don't think that those feelings are valid, but don't think that they are the only thing that is valid. Your friends telling you they had fun is also valid. If you had fun, it's also valid. Yeah, I think that's just wraps up what I was thinking there. It's okay to make mistakes. Yes, nobody is perfect. People have DM'd for years still make mistakes. If you overlook or misrepresent something, correct yourself and move on. No one expects you to memorize every rule or detail, even if you don't realize your mistake until after a game session is over. It's okay to acknowledge the mistake at the start of the next session and make adjustments moving forward. A lot of people call that retconning. So that's what that term means. Retcon means we're going to go and change this thing that happened before because it's not what was supposed to happen based on the rules or whatever. Now, if you and your group like the thing that happened more than retconning it, don't change it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And you can even make that rule going forward. That's the reason why there are home rules. Where you hear about people all the time saying, these are the home rules I run in my game. Sometimes, depending on the group, you're gonna like to make up some rules on your own that are different than D&D. All of these rules are suggestions. It's good to know them, at least like an idea and understanding of them. Again, you don't have to memorize any of the rules. I know successful GMs who have never read the handbook or the DMG and run role-playing games based off what they thought D&D was, and have successful Twitch channels. What's new in the 2024 version? There's a little purple box here, like highlighted in this section. So let's check this out. This is the 2024 version of the 5th edition Dungeon Master Guide. Much of the book has been reorganized, expanded, and rewritten from the 2014 version, and the versions of things in this book replace versions from older books. Here are a few highlights. Sound advice. Every chapter, but especially chapters 1, 2, 4, and 5, so not 3, has new advice for dungeon masters of all experience levels. Tracking sheets. Helpful sheets throughout the book give you tools to plan your game and keep track of your campaign. These sheets are also available on D&D Beyond. I saw these sheets before, I haven't used them. I normally just use a notebook. Encounter building assistance. The rules for estimating the difficulty of combat encounters have changed, as you'll see in Chapter 4. Ready-made elements. Sample adventures in Chapter 4. The campaign setting in Chapter 5. And new maps in Appendix B make it easier to run a game right away. I do remember reading some of their examples and being inspired by them. I don't remember what they are now. So when we get to that point, which won't be tonight for sure, but I'll have to make more notes about the ones that excite me. Expanded and revised magic items. Chapter 7 is packed with new magic items and old ones have been revised. I am a sucker for a magic item, especially being a plot device. I love me some cursed items. Bastions. Chapter 8 has rules that allow players' characters to build, maintain, and enjoy their own strongholds. Lore glossary and Appendix A. Helpful glossary explains many of the iconic people and locations found throughout the D&D multiverse. Okay, so at the beginning it says that this changes some things from the original rulebook. And it's important to know that the other books, like Tasha's, still apply to 2024. If they conflict, you're supposed to use 2024, but most of the time it won't really matter that much. As far as the counterbalance, I do need to get the I need to get this and my friend's monster manual that we went over the other day on here. I guess 2 weeks ago was the last time I streamed. Sorry about that, but I need to like mash them up and look at encounters because this book tells you is a CR still? I think it is to use from the other book. I don't know. I don't like it when they split those kind of things up, but um, I do think 3 huge, $70 books for a game like this is too much. That's why I like Powered by the Apocalypse a little bit more. The only problem is that Powered by the Apocalypse can come up short sometimes. Like, there's no insight check in the games that I've run for the most part. Like we played Monster of the Week the other night, and there's not really an insight check in that. You can read a bad situation, try to harm a person, but it's really hard to be like, you want to see if somebody's lying or not, I guess you could investigate a person, but what you need to play hasn't changed much since the game's first publication, 1974. But yet there's still several pages here about what you need. Rule books. As the Dungeon Master, you need this book plus the Player's Handbook, which contains most of the rules of the game, and the Monster Manual. Your players need access to the Player's Handbook too, but they can share as needed. Let players know beforehand what books other than the Player's Handbook they can reference during a playing session. For example, it's not appropriate for players to look up a monster in the Monster Manual or the equivalent digital tool while fighting that monster. If you're running a published adventure, players should avoid reading that adventure so they don't spoil any surprises. I agree with that, but you find out they did, that's their loss, really. Don't get mad at them or whatever. I don't understand these kind of people that do this. I don't know why they're playing this game, that situation. But don't get mad about it. There's no point in getting mad about it. You might have to. If it's not a problem for anybody else at the table, it is what it is. If it is a problem, if like you're having player conflicts with different people, you may have to run different groups or have a conversation with the players, all the players, and figure out what will work for your table. That's one of the hardest things to do. There was one time I had to ban a person from my table because that was not because of this. They were being inappropriate with one of the other players at the table that I no longer. And so this was like a newer person to the table. I believe that person even invited to begin with. And so I told the newer player, especially since their behavior was inappropriate, he couldn't come anymore. And then, like I said, I don't invite some of my friends that I play with. I don't always invite them to play in my games because they make me referee when I don't want to. I don't want to. I'm like, this is the way I want to play my games. And if you want to do this other thing, it's not a good fit. It's not a good fit. Yeah, I'm still friends with them. You can still be friends with people. You just find other things to do together. A Dungeon Master. One player has a special role of Dungeon Master. Some people love being the DM all the time, while others can end up feeling trapped as the forever DM for their gaming group. Sometimes I hate the sentence structures in these books. The group size section in Chapter 2 discusses possibilities for sharing the role of Dungeon Master among multiple players in the group. One of my players is also a Dungeon Master, but we are not going to rotate in this group. He has his own game that he runs on different end. I have never met a person who wants to DM all the time. You're gonna want to be a player sometimes. For if for no other reason, there's no prep necessary for a player. Player shows up knowing their character, what their character's about and everything, which you can just kind of review right before the game. Sometimes in past games, I wanted to spend more time reviewing, especially if I was playing based off of a character I really liked in TV shows or whatever. I might watch a few hours of their or an hour of their clips before I went to my session just to really get into character. But I'm a little extra when it comes to that. But yeah, I definitely want to play as much as DM. And when I DM, I want to prep. I can't always prep, especially for my group, because lots of times they're just going to go off the rails. But now that we're in a fixed setting like Eberron, I definitely need to at least review Eberron things the day of. Sometimes the night before, which would be tonight if I was doing that. But I've got a pretty good grip for now on where they're at, where they're going. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, if you could rotate Dungeon Masters, that would be ideal. It could get like if you're doing it in a single campaign, the campaign would all have to be very flexible for that. But you could do like I don't like long campaigns in the first place. Like that's one of the reasons why I don't like Critical Role. Nothing against them. I don't think they should change anything. It's working for them. And if anything broke, don't fix it. I'm not gonna watch it. It feels too much like a soap opera, and not enough like a sitcom. Like I don't like soap operas, but I like sitcoms. I like to laugh more, and to see the people that are playing are enjoying themselves. I feel very uncomfortable when I try to watch Critical Role. But if you're running something like Dimension 20 or whatever that has 10, 20 sessions or something. Or like I said, I'm in another game where I play, and then I DM the one. Like play sometimes and DM the other times. That can work. If you're gonna get to level 20, either by any of the rules that are actually in D&D, it's gonna go more than 20 sessions, probably. Again, unless you're like homebrewing, leveling stuff. That could be a way to do it. Maybe that's something I need to look at more going forward, because, like I said, I don't love long campaigns. I have to think about that going forward. We use let's see if it's in here actually. Probably in here somewhere, but we use where you get we don't use XP. We use the one where you mark that you showed up that day. And you get one that goes towards leveling up. You get one wild card, one downtime, and one wealth. You use wealth to buy magic items. You use wild cards for anything, and checkpoints. And the checkpoint goes to the leveling up thing. And the checkpoints at the first few levels, it's 2. So most of the time, people use their wild cards from like 1 to 4, I think it is, to level up every session. Then after that, it slows down. And then you might want to, think about using wild cards for magic items. I also have rules for downtime that will, if you're a spellcaster, you use 10 downtime to learn a level 1 spell, or get access to like one more level 1 spell. 20 per 2, or you can get a skill. You can get a skill by using 10 downtime, or 20 to get expertise. Anywho, I got a little sidetracked there, so you can see how I get off topic. Underneath things you need, rulebook, Dungeon Master. You also need players. Players who aren't the Dungeon Master. take on the roles of the heroes, also known as the characters or the adventurers. D&D plays best with 4 to 6 players, in addition to the DM, but it's possible to run a game with fewer or more adventurers. See the group size section in Chapter 2 for advice on doing so. My group is 3, and to me 3 or 4 is the sweet spot. Here's why. If you have more than that, for instance, the game that I play in every other Thursday, there is so many people in that game. 7 when everybody shows up. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 7 players when everybody shows up. And even when there's like 6 players, there's so many times where you want your character to do something or say something, or role play in a certain way, but there's so many other people. You also want to be courteous so everybody has a chance to talk. And it's a lot like going to a dinner and then leaving and not being full. There's so many people, there's not enough time for everybody to get real character development every session, and real focus. If I have like my 3 players, I can have a session where I'm focusing on one of the players, like let's say their backstory or whatever. I can pull them to the front and really dive deep into that, and the other player is going to have moments to react to that, react to how the character's dealing with their backstory coming to light in the story with them, and it's not going to feel to take, it's not, everybody doesn't have enough time to react to that, and I could do one for each of them, and I can just rotate. I don't always just go in order, because I get old, right? It's like, oh, this session's going to be mine. I can see it coming. Sometimes I'll just roll at the beginning of the session, too. But you better bet if I've had 2 sessions in a row, or it's the same character, that it's not going to be them. Next time, excuse me. But sometimes I will roll, like, just randomize it. Like, who's going to get a spotlight this week. And that's really hard to do in the beginning levels. But, like, once they get to 2nd or 3rd tier, I like to do that a lot as inspiration, just to kind of try to figure out something new that's going to happen. Other than you go to, X city, find Y dungeon, and, in order to keep it fresh and unique to those characters. Good stories, if you take the characters out of them, the story's a totally different thing. That's good stories. The stories, the characters matter to the story. So if you're trying to be a better dungeon master, you already know what you're doing, you're trying to be better, that's one way to do it, is really make the story that you're telling impact the characters by using, what you know about those characters to center sessions around. But yeah, so to me, 3 or 4 is a sweet spot. Any more than that, and I don't feel like each player has enough time to really feel like they got a lot of time with their character in the story that day. Finding players. Where do you find players? Here are a handful of suggestions. Gamer hobby stores. Store located on the Wizards of the Coast website can help you find stores near you that host D&D events. If you're going this route and you've never met these people before, session 0, 1,000 times more important. You have to know what's going to bother people, what they don't want in their stories, what they're okay with having the stories be going to black, and what they're just fine having in their stories. Friends, family, community members, and work colleagues who enjoy gaming or fantasy, gaming clubs at school, social media and online messaging sites, gaming conventions. And one of those online sites now, which I am technically a member and DM on, though I haven't even opened it up in my browser in probably 6 months. Start Playing. Start Playing is a great site. They do have free games you can jump in every once in a while, but most of the time you want to pay a couple of dollars. And I say you want to pay, because that means that the other players who have also signed into that game, they're more likely to show up and to engage in the story. You don't want to be playing D&D with people who are trying to do other things at the same time. You want people that are going to be invested in stuff, and you can have bad experience. Like, okay, fine, don't go back to to that dungeon master, or look out. Make notes about what worked and what didn't work. Most dungeon masters on there will send you like a DM afterwards, or ask you to DM them afterwards on Discord or whatever. Or there's a messaging part of the site to give them feedback, because they also just want to get better at the craft. But yeah, so I do recommend start playing. I've only had good experiences on it. I played on it. I have not been able to run a game from it yet. Nobody knows me from Adam on there. And my first proposal was convoluted, so it's not really surprising that nobody signed up. I was trying to combine like 3 different Powered by the Apocalypse systems into the game, and I told people that, and then run it all on Foundry, which I would have gotten the Foundry part working if people signed up for it. But I'm also kind of glad they didn't, because I could have ruined my name real fast if I didn't get the Foundry stuff working for it. But I probably should just stick to what I know, which is D&D. And I was able to program for the charity once I did in Halloween. I was able to program what I needed for the D&D stuff on there, even though I didn't have access to the D&D Beyond stuff that you can report in over there. So I should look into doing that some more at some point, but like I just don't have the spoons. I don't have a spoon for everything I need to do. I need to finish my book, which I'm I'm planning on rewriting most of at this point. I've decided that it's going to start in a different place, so therefore a lot of it's going to have to change because it started different. And I'm really struggling because I feel like I know how the ending has to happen. I don't want to end that way, but I think I do. I think I need to make one of the characters that I love and want to be a good guy going to book 2. I don't think it makes sense. I think they have to end up a negative character arc, at least at the end of book 1, be bad. And then maybe part of book 2 can be trying to reconcile that, or maybe even book 3, because book 2 is about one of the other characters, one of the main characters anyway. It's just I want the first character in at least in an environment in book 2. They can get there other ways too. Now that I've decided to have other tie-ins, and I know I'm saying a whole lot of vague stuff that has nothing to do, guys. Basically, somewhat back to the drawing board on my book. The new Sanderson videos have helped. They've helped remind me of some of the things that I do like to think about. Can't come out fast enough. And one of those things, and one of the things I was looking at more today, is I think I want to lower my target audience to middle grade, and so I need to research that more about what my grade is about, because I do think that changing the starting point to middle grade, and also speeding up the time of the inciting incident. I do like the ideas I have for reworking it. I just gotta have days where I don't have migraines that I can work on it. I almost didn't stream tonight because of migraines. I thought I was gonna be good until like half hour before the stream started, and then I wasn't wearing my sunglasses at the time, so it might have been part of the problem. Because I do feel better now. I have my sunglasses back on. But I was trying to get away without wearing them. Anywho, so things you need: Robux, Dungeon Master, players, a place to play. The bare minimum of space you need to play D&D is room for everyone in your group to gather and participate. In choosing the space you'll be playing in, enlist your players' help. Okay, good. I like that they said that. Think about any accessibility needs you or they might have. Some players might have difficulty with low lights. I'm the opposite. I have difficulty with highlight. I'm sorry, I'm just only see my hat when I'm doing this, huh? Some players might have difficulty with low light, background music, strong odors, cramped spaces, or specific allergens. Accommodate what you can. Communicate what you can't. Blah, blah, blah. Communicate what you can't as early as possible. Background music is interesting because a lot of people like some kind of background music. the game I play in, they act like it's essential to playing D&D. If it's a really good game, a really good story, I don't even notice if it's or not. That includes watching or playing. Lots of times the game I'm running, we're not doing music. For one, it kills the battery on my phone, and for two, I don't remember like keep track of it, mess with it. And all my players are always like talking about how they had a great time. Like they never tell me, oh, like we didn't have music at the time. Sometimes one of the players will do it, which is awesome. The one that's also DM, sometimes he'll start playing music. I'm like, oh yeah, thanks. I forgot like to include music, which is also one of the problems with me like DMing online for money, because I need to work on that part for sure. But yeah, ask your players, what they're going to need, what they don't need. We like to play in the basement here at this house that I'm with my roommates, and that's most of the players right there. But it's been very cold this winter, and the basement's the coldest part of the house. And we had a space heater, we lost it. And so it's very cold down there. So we've been playing in the living room on the couches with the dogs, like all up in our way and all up in our business, and making it work because we don't want to freeze. His other game he runs that I don't play in, they still go down in the basement. I don't know how they do it. Like they bundle up and stuff. But I'm like, I don't play in that game also because I don't get along with the other players. But you can also play D&D wherever you might come together in an online space, from a group video call to a sophisticated virtual table. You also need dice. You do need dice for D&D. There are role-playing games out there you don't need dice for, or you need less dice. But for D&D, you do need dice. You need a full set of polyhedral dice. It's D4, D6, D8, D10, D12, and D20. You don't need multiples. Most people will get multiples, especially if they enjoy D&D. And don't worry about memorizing that. You're going to find the best place to find these is to go to a gaming store. The same ones where they advertise. They have tournaments for Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pokemon or Magic the Gathering or any of those things. They probably, I'm going to say 99% of them, in America anyway, also have dice sets for D&D players. I was about to say prizes, but they probably vary depending on where you live. But they'll come in a whole set. You just buy a whole set. They're not that expensive for where I live, and you're talking to a person who lives day to day money wise. Like I am poor. I definitely couldn't buy a dice set every day, and justify it. Other people have bought me dice like for presents and stuff, which also helps. But yeah, for my first set, I just went and bought it. It was a little bit more than I thought it would be, but it wasn't breaking the bank. Hopefully, you can also find some. Also, if you don't have any, but you're going to a group of D&D with friends, especially if they played before, ask them to borrow a set, for that set. Good session, especially if you don't know if you're going to have fun. You don't know if you like D&D yet or not. Ask your friends you're going to go play with. You can borrow a set. If you're online, you can go to Google and just type in roll 1d20, and it'll roll it, and you can just do that every time. Most programs that are like virtual tabletops, they're called, like Foundry that I was talking about earlier, you can roll right there in the chat window and everybody can see what you roll. But then you don't actually need physical dice for that. Note-taking materials. Everyone needs some way to take notes. Needs is a strong word there. Most of the people I play with don't take notes. Somewhat to my chagrin. Now, interestingly, the game we just started, the every other Thursday game that we just started a new campaign of, not only do I take like very detailed notes, this last time we had a key player missing, and it's a very information intense. We're playing Strixhaven, and the DM went all out on like course requirements and all these other things because she can get a little she has another system that she wrote, I think, for Pokemon, where she gets very number crunchy in her role playing games and systems, rules and such. And so I was taking very detailed notes. We were meeting all these new teachers and all their names and the things that happen in the different classes. And she said that it would be great if I put that like on a journal in our Discord, in our shared Discord for that group. And it was more than I thought it was going to be once I actually typed it all out. I also had some few thoughts while I was typing, or memories while I was typing. There's one like event that happened to one of the players that was there. That's not in there because it wouldn't be in my character's journal because my character wouldn't know about it. But most of like the class stuff, you know, we can justify that my character would have heard about it from somebody that was in their class. So you can have that kind of situation. I think that eventually it could be unfair. Now, in my situation, I'm going to take notes anyway. That's part of how I play. Because I want to be able to remember things. I want to be able to go back to remember things, especially since I have memory problems to begin with. But everybody doesn't have to take notes. Most people don't. If you're new and you're just starting out, I do recommend you try to take notes. You're going to look back on them and remember things that didn't that you would have forgotten. Some things that you really liked, especially because if you're taking notes, lots of times it's things that really stand out to you, things that you either really liked or really didn't like. And even if you're generally not a note taker, I do recommend, at least for the first few sessions, to try to, just so you have that. Because sometimes it could be several weeks if the weather gets bad and we can't make it to a session or two. Somebody gets sick and they have to cancel. And it can be very difficult to remember everything that happened before. So I do recommend, at least for the first session or two, try to take notes. It's also really good to get all the players' pronouns for your notes, characters they're playing's names, and their pronouns. Those are pretty much essential to everybody, I feel like. Now, if you have a character sheet that's a blank backside, you can just put it on there. And you're not a spellcaster, like a lot of people like to put their spells there. But you might have a separate sheet for your spells, which is becoming more and more popular for people to print out a second sheet for their spells. And I do recommend that, like one, especially one that's like designed for that. But yeah, if nothing else at your session 0, you need that kind of stuff. And maybe if you hear a trigger or a line or a veil that you hadn't heard of before, you're surprised, or you're slightly worried your character might accidentally trigger, you definitely want to take note of that. Like, let's say that somebody's line is snakes. You know, they snakes any part of the game, just thinking about them creeps them out, and you're playing a druid. You need to know that and remember that so you don't turn into a snake. You can turn into any creature on a certain CR level. So you need to keep track of that and make sure you don't do that. You don't trigger your fellow player. At least session 0, maybe session 1 or 2. But it is helpful, like for me, because I have memory issues, to always be taking notes. Character sheets. You're gonna need character sheets. For D&D, you need character sheets. And that thing, if you've never played before, looks intimidating. There's a lot of stuff on it. I think we could probably get rid of maybe even up to like half the skills. And other stuff maybe could even just be kept on again as like a separate note sheet, like inventory or something. It is helpful to have it on there, but I feel like for new players, I feel like maybe we should have a different character sheet for new players, or if we know there's gonna be a bunch of new people at the table. Even just splitting that thing up into 2 pieces. Because again, you're not gonna reference all the material all the time. You're not gonna reference most of the material a lot of the time. Different DMs call for different checks, and different characters specialize different ways. And that's why there's so much on there. But I really feel like the main things that I would call on, one of my main things that I call all the time for is insight, perception, which are similar. Perception is to look around your environment and just see, just generally pick up things and see things and notice things. Insight is to notice vibes. Insight is to notice vibes of the person you're talking to, but also the area around you. So you got perception, insight, investigation, which could just be perception. If you want to go about it that way. Obviously, perception is wisdom-based, investigation is intelligence-based. But debatable whether or not you need both. But then that goes back to your character build. Well, what if you just said that the player puts in whatever is higher, whether it's their intelligence or wisdom? Because if you're looking around an environment, you're kind of investigating it. You're investigating something, you're trying to perceive it. In my opinion, they're very, very similar. We could get around that. Athletics and acrobatics could just be strength or dex checks. That's basically all they are anyway. It's just you want to be proficient in the check, which does help with some more physical based characters, especially. But you're not gonna find yourself rolling that as much as you are like saving throws. So I don't think we should get rid of any of the saving throws. They're all relevant depending on what situation you're in, or any of the 6 stats. They're fine. I find a use for each of them. They all make sense to me. They can be fun to try to explain to a new character, and there's lots of different suggestions out there and ways out there that tell people like how you can think about these things. But really, until you played the game for a little while, you're not really gonna wrap your head around it. But I'm fine with that. But like, animal handling could be persuasion. You're just doing it on a pet. Let me real quick Google a character sheet just to go through these. Because I don't want to run over my bag at the moment. We're just gonna do a 5e character sheet. They're basically the same. My roommates went to using a new character sheet for 24, and there's no reason to use a new character sheet for 24. You can get everything that you need to on the 5e sheet. All right, let's look at these skills. Yeah, so like I said, get rid of acrobatics and athletics. Just call them, strength or dex checks. You can get rid of animal handling. That could be a persuasion check. Doesn't need to be something different. Arcana is interesting. It doesn't have to be int-based, though. If you're a wisdom-based caster, you'll be using your wisdom to understand the nature of magic. So again, this could be use your spell modifier for this check. Deception is fine. We call for it a lot. History check is fine. It also helps people understand the difference between intelligence and wisdom in this game, at least. Insight. Intimidation. It's fine. You could just say that's a persuasion in a different form, but it's fine. We can keep it, I guess. I do let strength-based characters use their strength instead of charisma. It just makes sense. Investigation. Medicine. Medicine's fine. Nature's fine. And again, you could have the person roll nature or persuasion for animal handling instead of using animal handling as separate stats. Performance. I like performance checks. Persuasion. Religion. I don't. Religion being int-based because it's about remembering something. But then all the religious characters, like monks and clerics, because paladins are charisma. Monks and clerics are wisdom-based characters. Why is religion int? Because it's about remembering and recalling information, right? Well, if that's the case, shouldn't it just be part of history? You're just remembering the religion part of the history instead of, it's just a part of history. If you're just doing a memory check, maybe we just do that separately. Maybe we have religious checks that are about wisdom being separate from religious checks about history. Sleight of hand can come into play if you have somebody who's stealing stuff. If you don't, it doesn't really get used. Maybe that's just a dexterity check. I guess you'd be proficient in it. And it's important to some builds. I don't play that many rogues. I think that's showing now. Stealth is important in most games. Survival is important to a certain style of game. I think that could definitely come off the sheet. I do call for it sometimes. Sometimes it's just because I've noticed it's there, and I'm like, I want to try to use all the skills at some point during a campaign. Not a session, a campaign. But it could just be a wisdom check, or a nature check, like before. Like these things don't have to be. Doesn't have to be so complicated. Make it more complicated than it has to be. I don't know if it'll work or not, but I think there's a lot of scope to reduce stats, but it's rolling against the 6 base stats, the DM guided modifier. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying too. And I get that for some people, it would be easier to have it right there on the sheet, as almost as like a cheat sheet. The problem with that is we want new players to not be scared away from this thing, as soon as they look at it. The thing is intimidating. It scared me the first time I looked at it. Again, I would suggest having a second cheat sheet. Maybe this also helps those new players with taking notes. Like, hey, write down this note. But the next time I ask you for a survival check, this is how you do it. And so I'll help with that session 0, session 1, for them getting the habit of writing down notes. Again, I don't think players should write down notes every single session. I don't think everybody has to. You're gonna want one note taker at least. If not, you're gonna be very hard because the DM's gonna lay out things for you. What in writing we call promises that they're gonna later want to fulfill for your character, and like stuff from your backstory. That if you didn't take notes in the early sessions, they might not pay off, or you might not remember clues you got in a session to session base. Nathan says, like to follow what you were saying about athletics and acrobatics, just roll strength with the DM saying you're a pirate, roll strength check +5 or similar. Yeah, exactly. And also, like most DMs home rule that to being whatever you're better at, use that one, whether it's athletics or acrobatics. So they're already saying whether you're better, more dexterous or more strong, use whatever you're better at. We're already doing that. Just put that in the DMG. Put in the DMG, if they're a physical-based character, let them roll their physical-based stuff under tips or optional rules or something. It'll definitely make it more, this resource more valuable as an independent book. Since it feels like a whole lot of tips for new people, and it's not called new player Dungeon Master Guide or new Dungeon Master Guide. It's called the Dungeon Master Guide. This was a resource that a lot of people were looking forward to, helping them improve their DM abilities. And I feel like I've heard from a lot of people, not just myself, they're a little disappointed that it didn't give the tools that it promised. Like I'll just say about the notes, I took notes. I took notes on what was promised about this thing, and the payoff doesn't feel like it's there. But maybe I do need to dig deeper. That's why I'm reading through this tonight with you all to try to see if maybe I missed something when I skipped. But yeah, we gotta do something about that character sheet. It scares off new players so much. Scheduling games. I'm not even gonna read that. That's the big bad of D&D. Just trying to find a scheduled time where you and all your friends that want to play can get together. Know that going in, and be patient, and figure it out. Sometimes you have to wait weeks. We just got done, like I said, that one shot that I played with Nathan the other day. It was supposed to be one shot. When it turned into a 2-shot, we were like, okay, well, hopefully we can get together, in a few days. It was like 2 or 3 weeks. I don't even remember how long it was, but it was a long time. That's how it goes. That's how it goes. Information. There's just more about the character sheet stuff, which I'm not going to read. I know what a character sheet is. I'm sorry, I'm not going to read that. Campaign journal. Throughout this book, you'll find tracking sheets you can use to make your work as a DM easier. They range from sheets you can use to track NPCs or settlements in your game, to trackers you can use to make sure you're giving the adventurers a good number of magic items. These tracking sheets can form the basics of a campaign journal. Just in chapter 5, I guess they go into further depth what a campaign journal is. And they help you plan your adventures and build your world. You can scan or photocopy these sheets for your personal use, You find downloadable versions on dndbeyond.com. For a dungeon master, remember how I was saying earlier, I don't think that all players need to keep notes, but it would be helpful, at least for somebody, to keep notes, for you to have things. All dungeon masters should keep notes. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. Even if my last campaign, the long campaign that I was talking about, that last run for these guys, we were in a different city every couple of sessions. I was having to just like invent a new city off the top of my head. They were basically on the run from something they didn't want to face. Now I didn't make it that way. I left it cryptic. It was from one of the players' backstories. It was basically like their family, and so they knew their family was looking for them. And their family was generally like in the town they just came from, or they might hear noises they associated with their families. They were owlins, so they hear like scratching on roofs or something, or at night. And their family traveled at night; they were nocturnal. This character had developed traveling during the day to be an adventurer and to be with these other people, but they would hear clues they would associate with their family, and they never chose to face them. They were just like, we're always on the run. So I was creating up a new town every few weeks, and um, so were my notes used from the beginning of the campaign? Yes, they were. Here's why. There's a lot of character development. Remember how I like to say, since I only have 3 characters, I can focus down really hard on a session and really bring up the backstory on one person's character. And the other characters, I'll do that for them too in the next session, right? I'll do it for another character. And if your sessions every 3 sessions, first of all, you're role playing in the other character sessions, and a lot of times they had a lot of fun with that. Like we learned that my Goliath was also a Goliath in the last campaign. And we learned he was afraid of cats, even like kittens. And when one of the players found out about that, they loved to like poke him about it, right? Because they thought that was hilarious. So that you can still have fun when a spotlight is on the character. It doesn't mean that none of the other characters are there. They're there. It's just your backstory is coming to the front of the story, so you're more prevalent. The story this week is more focused on you. It doesn't mean it's exclusively you. So I had to a couple times I had to go back to those notes for inspiration, for ideas. Like, okay, how am I going to spotlight this character this week? I remember things from months before, from our early sessions from months before, that would trigger the inspiration. And a lot of it for Dungeon Masters, a lot of it is finding your inspiration. Which, if you've never Dungeon Master before, you might have a lot. We have a lot of inspiration, and that's awesome. Start taking notes today about what inspires you, what kind of stories you want to tell, and how do you want to tell them. Sometimes you will have to tweak those to make them Dungeon D&D appropriate, because again, you're sharing this story. If you just want to tell the whole story yourself, you want to have you want to tell the players part 2, then just write a book. But if you're inspired about certain bad guys that really inspire you, and you want to play these bad guys, that's perfect for a Dungeon Master. But take notes about them, because you might forget about them for a little while. And a few months later, you might be like, oh yeah, I really wanted to do the Joker from DC Universe. I really wanted to do some stuff with him. If you had those in your notes, like, you wouldn't have forgotten that, and you might not have had to like take time off to find your inspiration again. But definitely take care of yourself. If you're burning out, take a break. Your players will understand, even if first of all, if they sound a little disappointed, that's a good thing. That means you're doing a good job and they're having fun. But stand your ground, set your boundaries. It's important to take care of yourself. But a lot of it is finding inspiration. And sometimes you can go back to your earlier notes and find inspiration there. Sometimes it's from last, 2 weeks ago, last session, wherever that was, and you might have forgot a bit. There might have been a small bit that happened in the middle of a game. You're like, oh, that's really good. I'm going to want to remember to use that. If you don't write it down, you might forget it until you work on the next campaign, even. Until much later. So, Dungeon Masters should take notes. Take as many notes as possible. It can be hard during the game because stuff is flowing. You feel like you have to stop because your brain can't keep up telling the story as you're writing. I get that. Sometimes I will call for a break just so that I can write down a few notes. My group, we're often waiting on somebody who just went to get a drink or had to go to the bathroom. My group, again, they're neurodivergent. They are as neurodivergent as you can get. So a lot of times those breaks just happen anyway. I can catch up and take notes. But when we're really into it, and we're all into it for like an hour, I'm gonna have a lot of notes to write. And so I might even call for a break. I'm gonna be like, okay, give me 5 minutes. Write some notes. Go get a drink. I might tell them, go get a drink, get something, go to the bathroom, whatever. Or I might use the restroom, come back and start making notes before they press me to go on. Because by the time I get back from going to the bathroom, they're telling stories about what's happening. But take care of yourself and Dungeon Masters, you have to take notes. Even if you don't like taking notes, you will thank yourself later for taking notes. I don't enjoy taking. I enjoy finding my notes and being like, oh yeah, that's what I wanted to do, or that's what I was thinking, or that's what my players were thinking and what they were really excited about. The campaign journal thing is interesting. There is a version of taking notes. It's a way to take notes. I probably won't be going about it. As long as the price of paper and notebooks, knock on wood, doesn't skyrocket like everything else, I'll just be using a notebook. To add to this, write legible notes. Legible to yourself. This is true. Sometimes I can't read my own notes, and that will frustrate and aggravate me. Nobody else has to read them necessarily. Now, obviously, if your group decides you're going to share notes, that's different. But if it's just your DM notes for you, as long as you can read them and understand them, that's what's important. But yes, yeah, you have to be able to read your own handwriting. Otherwise, what's the point of the note? Useful additions. Various resources can enrich your game and make it more fun. Many of these resources might have digital versions, making computers, tablets, and smartphones essential elements of some D&D games for some players. I am on my phone or my tablet a lot. Most of the time, I'm looking up like monster stats. Even if we have the new DMG, if you have multiple monsters, you didn't take notes ahead of time, it's going to be hard to turn back and forth those pages. Yeah, this is very definitive from experience of failing to decipher my own notes. Yeah, I get it. I've been there. But yeah, so if I'll keep tabs open on my tablet or my phone on the internet browser. That's one way I take notes just about my day-to-day life, like things like my grocery list is a bunch of open tabs on my internet browser on my phone. So I always go in there every day at the end of my work day, and like, what did I remember to put on here that I need to buy from? For D&D, it's similar. It's first of all, it's the same thing lots of times. If you are running out of a book, like now that we have the new monster manual, you're going to want to write down the main things those monsters can do. For an encounter, if you plan the encounter ahead of time. Again, I have a hard time planning things ahead of time with the script, so that might not work for me. But our first combat, they were near an area that had like a lot of undead, so I just looked up undead from the back, and I wanted some variety, so I picked out 3 different ones. So I'm sitting here, and I'm holding Dungeon Master Guide, not the Dungeon Master Guide, the new monster manual, like my fingers. I'm trying to turn back and forth, and then trying to put notes on my paper to keep track of HP on my paper, and so I wasn't able to fill out what all these monsters did. It was like the last 45 minutes, half hour of session 1 or whatever. They hadn't had a combat yet, maybe even session 2. They hadn't had combat the whole time. My players are hack and slash players. I'm like, I have to throw them something. So I'm just going to throw out like these early things and check out what they look like from the new monster manual and how they work from the monster manual. I had like a zombie, a skeleton. I had a skeleton, and another thing that sounds like a zombie. Excuse me. But it had a little more things. I don't know if it's called like ghoul or what it's called, but like it had like multi-attack or something. But all their CRs were all like a quarter or something. And they easily handled it. I knew they would.
But I just wanted to throw something at them for that. If you're playing this ahead of time, you would want to write out the HP, the ACs, and like the plus to hits, and maybe like how many attacks they get or something, or any like their go-to spells. You'd want to at least take notes of those ahead of time, so you're not constantly paging back and forth in the monster manual. That's something that I rarely will be able to do though with my players, because they are all chaotic. It depends on what week, whether or not they're chaotic neutral, chaotic good, or chaotic evil. As players, not the characters, as players. But I love them. And I love running for them. They keep me on my toes. Which is why I've learned a lot in a short amount of time. I've only Dungeon Mastered for, wow, been 5 years already? It's basically, not 5 years, because COVID, it was right after we got back from COVID. So it's been like 4.5 years or something. But it's been a jam-packed 4.5 years. Time flies when you get older. Don't get older. Don't get older, kids. DM screen. DM screen can be fun. Sometimes you do want to hide rolls, not because you're gonna fudge rolls or cheat rolls or anything, but because you don't want the players to know everything in real time all the time. Sometimes you're gonna want to build up suspense or tension at the table. Let's say you have an NPC and they're in the middle of combat, and you tell them the NPC goes down, they're rolling death saves. You might want to build up that tension and maybe to give the hint that one of them might want to go there and heal them to not give away what their death saves are. Stuff like that. Adventures and source books. I know what those are. I'm not going to read that. Battle grid and miniatures. We have some maps in the basement again where it's very cold. We haven't been down there for this campaign at all. We also have some miniatures down there we use for placeholders. There are also great sites that you can order your miniatures off online if you have the money to do so. I recommend it. If you're playing online, I don't recommend it. You can either find a way to create your own art or commission art online and make tokens like in Foundry. Foundry has a very pretty token system, but you still have to have the art for the tokens for player characters. In the free Dungeons and Dragons module for Foundry, you have to pay for the Foundry license, but the D&D part of it is free, and it has some monsters in it. So before you commission art for monsters, check that out. Check out your free resources you have available to you there. Card accessories. That could be fun if you have the right players for it. I've never used cards. I've seen them. I believe we have a deck here. Nobody here uses them either. I think it's just one more thing to manage. You usually just use, again, for like spells and stuff, we just use a second sheet. We are going to run till 10 o'clock tonight. I'm going to try to start doing shorter streams, and then maybe I can feel up to streaming more often. We're going to do 2-hour streams. That does give me another 35 minutes to get to this book a little bit longer. That's why I wanted to throw that out, because this would be the time we'll go to break. I also thought about going to break earlier before I remembered it was going to be a 2-hour stream, and didn't. For now, I'm going to keep going, and we'll see if we can get all the way up to 10 without taking a break, because I don't need to at the moment. But if you need to, definitely take care of yourself. Come back later. The VOD will be available at least for a little bit, unless Twitch doesn't even, let it be available for a week anymore. I don't know. They're changing things, and they announced they were going to change things, and then things have already started changing before what they said it was going to happen. So I don't know. Which would be weird sometimes. Preparing a session. All right, let's see what they have here. Do you feel like you've learned anything from the book? I feel like I've talked a lot, share a lot of my wisdom. I don't. Did I learn anything so far from this book? I don't think I have. I don't think skipping the beginning parts of what I skipped, I have really learned anything. Thank you for being here and letting me rant. Very therapeutic. Preparing a session. The more you prepare before your game, more smooth the game will go to a certain point. Now, like they added that because I was about to be like, to avoid being either under or over prepared. Use the 1 hour guideline below. Prioritize what to prepare depending on the time you have available. Here for the rants. Thank you, Nathan. I appreciate you. One problem I have with this right up front. I do believe I read this before. Telling somebody that the next thing they're going to do should take them about an hour is going to trigger some people's anxiety if it doesn't take that out. They might try to measure that. They might try to see how they measure up. Don't do that to yourself. These people don't know what's going to take you an hour or not. Don't let this bother you if it takes you longer than an hour, less than an hour. Also, don't let them, they said, to make sure you avoid under preparing or over preparing. You don't know your style yet if you're just starting. There are people that like to over prepare, makes them feel more comfortable, less anxious when they're actually running the game. That's me. I'm people. There are people who don't like to over prepare because they know their players are going to do whatever they want anyway, no matter how much they prepare. The only caveat to that is that if you have over prepared, you can adjust some of that stuff when your players do go on their caveats and stuff. Like, let's say you prepared a few NPCs and a setting for these NPCs, and they leave that setting, they go do this other thing. You might find that one of your NPCs or more still can fill a role of being an NPC over here. Or next session, the session after this one, they might go do the thing you had planned for this time. And so then you can bring that stuff back out. So don't stress if you are an over preparer, as long as you're not neglecting responsibilities, in your regular life or whatever. And don't stress if you like to under prepare, if you like to see how it goes or where it goes. The game that me and Nathan just got done playing, Come Monster of the Week, tells you not to prepare hardly anything. Because you play to find out. Now, not everybody can do that. Not everybody can play to find out. It helps you. It gave us all so much. It gave us so much when we were creating our characters. It gave me and the players so many connections to the other characters and to the world. It helped us build the world and the characters at the same time while we were creating their characters. Which is one of the reasons why, a lot of people I respect a lot say that you should have character creation be a group effort. You shouldn't create your character and then come to the table. Oh, sorry, I have a little indigestion there. And it did not taste good. Because you can weave other characters into your backstory. Maybe it's your more recent backstory. Maybe you met them last week or something. But especially like in Monster of the Week, they're like, no, you've already been on a few missions together. You don't have to go into detail about those missions. It's just the idea is that you already know that you're already comfortable asking each other to join in when something comes up. And that's very powerful for a role-playing game. And you can bring that to D&D too. That could be one of your homebrew rules that everybody has to already know each other. That's fine. There are people that do that. It's up to you. This campaign I just started would have been easy had we done that. I had to find a way to get them together and then ship them off to Eberron. I also wanted them, because they don't know Eberron, not to create characters for Eberron, but to experience this. And then next time I would create characters for Eberron. And I also specifically told one of the players who loves playing Warforged, because Warforged are broken, not because he understands, what Warforged are and how they think and roleplay. And so I'm showing him, in Eberron how they behave to get a better idea of what they are before the next campaign, where I'll say, okay, if you want to play Warforged, people are going to treat you not great. That's how Eberron deals with it. Which is an interesting topic for today's age. AI come to life and their rights, because that's probably in our near future. But yes, um, don't get triggered if this takes you 1 hour or less, or if you like to over prepare or under prepare. Don't let the Dungeon Master Guide tell you how to live your life. D&D game session usually starts with some out-of-game chatter as everyone settles down to play. My game, it's hard not to have the chatter go throughout the whole game. Um, try not to do that. Try not to do that if you're a player or the Dungeon Master. Try to be in the moment and try to be in the game to tell the story. Like, that's what you're there for. But also try to be patient if you are with neurodivergent people. It's going to happen. Like Nathan said, he's here for the rants. You know, we're going to go off the rails from time to time. Like I have tonight. Once the session gets underway, most groups can accomplish at least 3 things during 1 hour of play, where each thing might be any of the following. Again, this depends on the size of your table, right? Again, with 3 or 4 people, you might do more than 3. Explore a location such as a chamber in a castle or a cave. Converse with an intelligent creature. Reach consensus on a divisive issue. Reaching consensus on a divisive issue can be very fun to watch your players try to do that. And they can go round and round and round. Solve a tricky riddle or puzzle. Riddles are very hard in my group. I wish that I could use riddles. Unfortunately, they instantly know it or they're not going to get it. Most of the time, they instantly know it. Most of the time, I've done like this long time to find a great riddle that really fits the story and the theme. And then I say the riddle and they're like, this is the answer. And I'm like, oh, okay. Puzzles are a little bit different, and I need to get better at running puzzles. I have a hard time finding interesting puzzles. As a player, whenever presented with a puzzle, I'm not good at them. Some of the time, I feel like that's the DM not doing a great job of um, explaining everything that we see or whatever. And then the rest of the time is that I'm not puzzle minded. I was about to say I'm not smart enough. I'm smart in different ways. I'm not puzzle minded. Survive a deadly trap. Fight a low difficulty combat encounter. So they're saying you could do 3 of these things in an hour. I will tell you right now, if you're trying to reach consensus on a divisive issue, that might take a whole hour by itself, no matter how big your table is. But the other things, I don't know. You could fight a low difficulty combat encounter. All combat encounters are going to take longer than you think they're going to take. Even if your players are vastly overpowered. Again, you want to balance it to still have fun. But if they are overpowered, you're going to want to send more of the low-powered monsters at them and stuff. But if they're just they're like, I take out my weapon and I kill the thing, and then you just take a turn doing that. Or maybe one person kills most of them, and the other people like just mop up. That's not going to be fun for them. It's almost like, what was the point of rolling initiative? To write down everybody's initiative order. You know what I mean? So, you most of the time, it's going to take an hour to do a combat encounter, whatever the level is, whether it's high or low. Oftentimes longer than an hour. Again, if it says low difficulty, depends on the kind of players you have too, whether or not they like to second guess themselves a lot. Like, I have a barbarian that likes to go over all of their notes about what their character can do before they decide they're just going to swing their axe at the thing, which is what they're going to do anyway. We all knew they were going to do the whole time. But you can't be rude about it, you know. This is your friend. They came here to play a game, tell a story with you. This is one of the things they really like about the game. And it's interesting because like they can get a little frustrated that like that's all they can do. And then you try to tell them, okay, well now we're gonna start a new campaign. Maybe try a fighter. You know, they could do a few more things like this or that, or you know, or maybe a druid, which can be like maybe a fighty druid or a fighty cleric. And then they think about it, and then just go back to like, no, I'm just a barbarian. and then they're frustrated they don't have more options like in combat. So it is what it is. But yeah, most combat encounters are going to take at least an hour. A lot of that is players' indecision. Preparation time. The following guidelines can help you prepare for a session of play using a published adventure. Published adventures have gone up with inflation and like stayed up, whatever. If they're older, I feel like they should get cheaper. Like we can buy a book on sale, like after everybody has the book, and like a few people like left that don't have the book. Even though everything's online, it's online. I don't know. I would like to be able to buy more adventures, and I can't justify paying the price for like any of them at the moment. Um, they're too expensive. Preparation time. The following guidelines. Okay, 1 hour preparation. Again, don't get upset if this takes longer than an hour or less than an hour. Don't think you forgot anything or skipped anything. Everybody's different. If you spend 1 hour each week preparing for your game, follow these steps. Step 1. Focus on the story of the adventure. Adventurer, according to this, adventure. Read or reread the adventure's introduction and background information. Oh, right, because you're running a module that says a published adventure. Read the introduction and background information. Some people read faster than others. I don't read that fast. I don't read super slow, but sometimes I have to reread things a couple of times. Have you noticed just tonight by talking to you that I get distracted? But also, like, my mind will wander. I might get inspired. If there's an awesome art up here and the picture, I might start thinking about how I would make that, a monster character. Or whatever. You come back here like, oh yeah, I've didn't finish step 1 on the how to do the adventure. Or I might like take out a note on my phone. Oh yeah, I need to buy this thing, so I might add a note to my internet browser for tomorrow or something. A friend might come and ask me for something. So just don't again, don't get triggered if this takes you longer or shorter than an hour to prepare. So you want to read you're running a published adventure. This is talking about. Okay, so it's saying that the first thing you want to do, read or reread the adventure's introduction and background information. Create a bulleted list of key plot points to make sure a coherent story unfolds. If you're doing like a list of plot points, that's gonna take a while for me if I'm doing that. I'm definitely gonna have to reread it a few times, try and make the plot points. And I'm sorry, how are you not gonna railroad people with this? Step 2: identify the encounters you want to run. Then figure out how likely it is each encounter will get played. Categorize each one as definite, possible, or unlikely. Yeah, not with my group. My group, all of them will be unlikely. Gather any maps you'll need for the definite and possible encounters. Then focus the remainder of your prep time on the definite encounters as outlined below. I'm starting to see why this didn't work for me. This is assuming you have players, a certain kind of player. For combat encounters, review the monster's tactics and stat blocks. This is what I was telling you before, like if you can actually prep the monster stuff and make notes of them. Note any special rules that apply to the setting of the encounter. For social interactions encounters, make notes about non-player characters in the encounter, their personalities, goals, and tactics. For exploration encounters, record any clues or other information the character should learn. Review any special rules that might come into play in the encounter. That'll depend on your table. So this definitely sounds like it's on the side of over preparing, first of all, to me. And it also looks like it would lean itself to railroading a little bit. Don't get married to all those plot points, even if you can do this quickly, you need to do it quickly. Just know your players are going to throw you curveballs, even if they're not as chaotic as mine. Consider how each definite encounter relates to the player's motivations. Even know your players section in chapter 2. So at least I'm showing you that I know my players. Think about elements you can add to interest them. For example, a combat encounter could open with a tense negotiation designed to appeal to players who enjoy social interactions. Yeah, a certain type of social interaction. But again, I don't always know if my players are going to like a character in NPC or decide they want to kill them on the spot. And it could be the same basic NPC 2 weeks in a row and they could have a different reaction the next week. Now, I don't mean like I would give them the exact same NPC each week, right? But like flavored differently. But in my mind, like they have the same role in the story or something. And it's just how they're feeling that day. It's just what mood they're in. Really. Skim the encounters flagged as possible. Also, like, you're assuming that all these modules, adventure modules, were written the same way. And they have tried, to their credit. Wizards of the Coast has tried to standardize the way the modules are prepared, but they're still very different. And a lot of the older ones are better than the newer ones. One of the OGs, I don't remember which it was for 5e or for an earlier edition. That came in late 5e, right? Like, again, 2014 was 5e came out. I learned how to play Dungeons & Dragons in like 2018, 2019. And then COVID hit. And then once COVID got, like, we were able to go back out in public again. Which in my area was a lot longer than other areas. As far as like meeting in groups together, it was like for like almost like a year. Then I was like started trying to get people to let me DM my group of friends, and that took a while after that. But so it might have been early 5e, or it might be earlier. I'm trying to remember the name of the thing. I can't remember right now. Lost Mines of Found Lost Mines of Found is written really well, laid out really well, even though it's an older module. It's a lot better than like some of the newer ones that have come out. So like it would be nice if it was more standardized. But this is acting like every adventure module is standardized. It's gonna have all these things for you, and it might not. You might have to create a lot of stuff for yourself, or again come up with it on the fly as you're playing. Don't freak out if that happens either. Again, you can always call for a short break as you prepare the next thing, especially if your players are hitting with curveballs that you've never seen coming. Sometimes sometimes players that are very quote unquote neurotypical or normal, however word you want to use for it, most of the time, some weeks they just come, they're just feeling spicy that week. And they're just gonna throw things at you that you're like, what? But they're still there, they still want to play, they still want to have fun. They're just feeling spicy. Don't get upset when that happens. The next week you'll probably have the people that you played with up to this point back again, or ask them. Again about that communication I was talking about before. That is a good point. They laid it out here. Communication's huge. That's at the end of the session or in the middle of the week. So like last week was a little different for me. Was it different for you guys? Do you like that? Do you want more sessions like that? They might have just been feeling spicy that week and don't want it to always be like that. They might want to meet in the middle somewhere, which is probably what they're going to say at least. If you have a second hour to prepare, it says, carefully review each possible encounter. Go anytime you have left creating improvisational aids. See the improvising answers section in chapter 2. That'll be an interesting read. I'm going to have to read that when I have a lot of spins, because I might have a lot of thoughts about that. If you have 3 hours to prepare, add these steps. Skim each unlikely encounter. Create a new encounter designed to appeal specifically to one player, or alter an existing encounter to relate to the goals and motivations of the player character. Over the course of several sessions, do this for all your players and their characters. And that's what I was talking about before. Try to highlight a player per session. So this step 9, that's step 1 for me. I'm trying to figure out how to make this session special for a player. And you can do that every week if you have 3 or 4 players. It's a lot like if you play a game that has long turns. The more players there are, the longer you have to wait for your turn, the less fun you're going to have because you have to just this long wait. If it's 3 players, you don't have to wait that long for your turn. And again, on these sessions, it's not you're not just playing with that one player because otherwise, why would you have the other 2 people that even show up? They're involved. It's just centered around them and their backgrounds. What time is it? 9:46. How to run a session. So that was preparing a session. Now I'm going to tell you how to run a session. You've done all this prep work. You spent 3 hours. What are you going to tell me that isn't like just do what you prepared? There's like 2, 3 pages on how to run the session. They just give you 1 page on how to prepare. And then the next thing it says is every DM is unique, which I agree with. All right, let's quickly run through how to run a session. I don't know like how it's not just do what you prepare. This section explains how to run this game session. Later on, chapters 4 and 5, you help tell how to combine sessions to adventures into campaigns. I read those ones very closely and very difficult. Like I read those closely. I thought that's what I'm here for. And it was basically you create this adventure, this session, right? And then you create another one that plays out slower. So it's like you're playing 2 sessions, but one session is going to last the campaign or several weeks, where it's like a different mystery they're looking at or whatever. That's going to result in all these lower sessions, which makes sense, but I kind of already knew. But recap. Okay, that's a good point. Start each game session after the first with a recap of what happened in the previous session. This is another reason why you want to take notes as a DMG. If for some reason you have a player like me, maybe even better than taking notes than me, hopefully. I'm not perfect. You can have the player do the recaps. Okay, if you have a player who's really good at taking notes. You're going to want to ask for a copy of those notes to prepare for your next session if you're not taking notes at all and they're the only ones taking notes. Or if you like, you're gonna want that if you're doing this, if you're going through DMG to prepare sessions the way they're telling you to, you're either gonna want to have your own notes or have access to these notes. But it doesn't have to be you; it can be a player. A recap helps players get back into the story. It also provides important information to players who missed the previous session. You could provide this recap, or you can invite 1 or more players to deliver the recap instead. Each approach has benefits. I will say one thing. 1 negative to having only 3 players. If 1 player is missing a session, we're not running. We're not playing. Now, that could be seen as a negative. For me, it's kind of a positive. I'm one of those introverted, neurodivergent types that is like, I'm happy when plans get canceled. I'm like, oh, I don't have to go to that thing that I promised I would do. I knew I might enjoy it a little bit, but I get to just stay home and stay comfortable instead. And stay in my own little space that I have carved out for myself. So I don't mind it. Like, obviously, if it happens a lot, it can become a problem. And if there's a long gap between 2 sessions, it can become a problem. Especially if you didn't take good notes. But that's another reason why recap is really good. DM recap. Provide the recap yourself. Okay, this is player recap right here. Let players provide the recap. I'm not going to read what I've already talked about those things. Encounters. The bulk of typical D&D session consists of a series of encounters, similar to how a movie is a series of scenes. In each encounter, there are chances for the DM to describe creatures and places, and for characters to make choices. Encounters can involve exploration, social interactions with creatures, or combat. Player's Handbook outlines the general rhythm of play in an encounter. The following section offers more detailed information on how an encounter typically unfolds in 3 steps. This is an interesting way to present it to a Dungeon Master. I feel like if you're coming from game design, I did study game design, or a game programming field, like this might be a good way to think about it. For me, it's better to think about it as scenes than encounters. I don't think of social encounters as social encounters. I think of it as a scene, as an open box. Like you're going to the market. What kind of store, what kind of items are you looking to buy or whatever? And then like I'll think of an NPC that I usually have to come up with an NPC that will tie into that. If it is part of the quest, though, if it's a quest giver, I might find a way to nudge them in that direction. They might get a message, they might have a dream the night before. I love playing with dreams and messing with dreams. If Nathan and I had more time in that game yesterday, I was gonna go over what all y'all dreamed that night before what happened yesterday. Because I love doing dream stuff. But um but yeah, if I have a certain player or certain character in the game, oftentimes again you can move that to wherever they're gonna end up being. A shopkeeper is a shopkeeper. If they don't, if you're thinking, oh, they're gonna want to go to the smith, they're gonna want to do something with the weapons or whatever, and they don't, and they're like, no, just one person wants to go shopping and they want to go shop for a ball gown. Yes, I have that player in my character, in my group. Okay, well, this person is meant to give you the quest instead of the what's it called, the blacksmith or whatever. Or maybe they tell you, they heard the blacksmith had a job and you look perfect for that job. I can still decide to, because I have the players that I have, and they don't know that I'm like trying to lay out these breadcrumbs for them to follow. They might still blow off the blacksmith, just be like, "What else is in town? What else can we do?" And that's why lots of times I'm just like have to be flexible on who is the quest giver. But you could also have the quest to happen upon them in different ways, or you could just change the whole thing up. And again, maybe next week is when they go do the quest you had planned, and they're in town now, and so you got to make that interesting. But that's one of the reasons also that I don't think of these as encounters, I think, is because if I did, they're not going to play the encounter the way I have planned. Describe the situation. One thing I will say in describing the situation, I made notes for myself that I've gotten compliments sometimes, because sometimes I remember to do these things. And one of my favorite creators is wonderful at doing these things. Try and think about the town and the surroundings. What's breathing there going to be like? What's smelling going to be like? What are the sounds? My players find themselves on the coast a lot, and they were on the coast again last time at the beginning of the last adventure. They decided to go a different way than I thought they were going to go, to an inn for the night in Eberron, and I didn't get the chance because there was a lot in the morning. They were in the spirit, so I wasn't gonna stop them to tell them, you're on the coast. Just there's the coastal town, like a fishy smell to it, or anything like that, or at this particular lake was gonna smell even worse than normal because it was very near area of necromancy and death. So it was gonna be bad times, but like they were so into the role playing and stuff that I wasn't gonna stop it for that. But if you have time to set up a scene, they started in Candyland, so everything smelled really sweet. And one of the characters is coming to Candyland from somewhere else. You have to play with that and how sweet it smelled. If they're on the coast, it's gonna be a fishing town. Probably there's gonna probably be the smells of people preparing fish. If they are in the woods, is it like a pine smell they're getting a lot of, or an earthy tone? And are they going to hear, like on their watches at night, are they going to hear a wolf howl in the distance, or is this place don't have that? Sometimes the absence of sounds is what you want to note on them. You want to tell them, it's weird. You don't hear the sounds of the forest tonight. Wherever you've traveled, the animals that you are used to being around and stuff, they're not around. So, what did your character think about that? Or how does your character feel about that? in the very still quiet. You can hear your friends over there sleeping, so you know you can hear, but like and that can create like a nice little tension. Um, and then in the morning, you explain to them that like I don't know, maybe the woods are haunted or something. Um, I I had a lot of fun with the haunted woods section in the last campaign very early on. I learned something about my players. A very important thing about my players. They are fine with ghosts. They're fine with like if the ghosts are like doing possession stuff and everything. Briefly, right? They do not like it if I try to make a ghost voice, the sound of a ghost voice, especially my barbarian. She it triggers her. So we learned that was a line that I can't do that voice. I really want to do it for like actual play at some point and see if it comes across over the internet as well as did my players. It creeped her out so much, and she's not here for that anyway, right? Like she's not a horror gamer. She's a hack and slash gamer. If we were playing Warhammer, she'd probably be just as much having as much fun as D&D. We just wouldn't be able to call it Warhammer. We'd have to call it D&D because of preconceived notions in that, right? But it is almost 10. I have rambled a lot, and again, a lot of this stuff just doesn't work for my table, unfortunately. Let the players talk. That's a very important point that comes up next. Describe what happens. Sometimes no rules required. That's good. Sometimes resolving a situation is easy. If the adventurer wants to cross an empty room and open a door, you can just say that the door opens. Describes what lies beyond, perhaps referring to your map or notes, which is hilarious because most D&D adventurers who have played before, if they come up to a door, they might spend an hour talking about how they approach that door, and that's just because other DMs have taught them to be afraid of doors, which can be fun and funny. Let's see. Oh my goodness, we have so many awesome people we can go raid. Oh my goodness, how are we gonna decide? Let me just go with the top person. But let's just go down here a little bit deeper to make sure there's not like somebody who really stands out to me. Like I really want to rate that person. I think. Oh, let's raid Mori. They were in my game that we played for Halloween. Raid. Don't move them on me. Chrome. I need to be able to spell their name right. Mori Noke BT. Alright. Be awesome to them. They're an awesome person. They're awesome follow. Intended for mature audiences. Yes. Be mature. And send them my love. Thank you so much for hanging out tonight and for interacting and for reading DMG with me. We'll see what we do Monday. Maybe more of this. Hopefully I can stream again. This went better than expected. And thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Have an awesome time. And hopefully I'll see you Monday. Night, fam.
I think I'm gonna do Divine Smite at a 3rd level. So that's 4d8, and I'll obviously roll to attack.
Alright.
That's a 19. Does that hit?
Yeah.
Okay. So then what did I say it was? 4d8 for my 3rd level?
Yeah.